I swear if I have to do another take, I'm going to lose it. But I'm just having a hard time articulating why I'm making this video in the first place. But I think those of you who understand will get it by the end. So I'm upset about the way things have been over this past week, especially regarding online circulation of unverified claims and theories that are, at the very least, ignorant in the sense of purpose, and at the very worst, purposeful with the intent of self-enrichment. And we have to be adults and have a mature conversation about the way things work in the real world and understand that there are limitations regarding what we can and cannot assume based on the information we have access to and what we can speculate on without deciding it is a proven point. Right now, throughout our community, whether or not that's the preparedness community, the firearms community, or even just conservative media in general, if you want to put it in that frame, right now we have a huge problem where everybody is a scientist and a forensic investigator and some level of genius that we just didn't realize before, I guess. And we found the wrong calling because instead of posting YouTube videos and all over X, we probably should be working in some sort of an agency where these investigations actually solve crimes. But instead, we're doing this. So I want to have this conversation because I think a lot of people out there are looking for a rational discussion regarding everything that's been happening surrounding the assassination of Charlie Kirk and understand that what we're being forced to endure is not necessarily what it seems. So, and am I upset? I am. I'm upset because I think we are missing a huge opportunity and we're asking the wrong question. Stop asking the wrong question. We're wasting so much time right now. You're wasting time. I'm wasting time. And at the same time, the questions that are being asked aren't even the ones that matter. So now that for a large portion of you, I've probably ruined my credibility, and the other ones that already assumed I was a Fed will just have more reinforcement of that theory, let's get started. Now, I'm not necessarily addressing anybody directly, but even for your personal self-reflection, here's some things I want to ask you, okay? What are you trying to accomplish in this conspiracy deep dive? This is something that I want you to really think about. Because when I say stop asking the wrong question, you're going to assume I'm applying that to some level of investigation, and that's not what I'm referring to at all. And we'll talk about what that question should be towards the end here when I get to my point. First, I want you to ask yourself, what are you trying to accomplish? What is the actual intended goal here? Are you sure that this isn't some kind of sick entertainment at this point for you? And I don't mean necessarily you. I mean whoever is doing this that might be watching this video. What's the point? What are you going to do with this information that you miraculously uncovered without any level of investigative background to suddenly know the truth, have the proof, and then use it to what end? Are you going to submit it in order to be investigated by those who could actually punish somebody for a crime? Unlikely, because by making the media that you did in order to even put this information out there, you've already ruined the integrity of the evidence that you supposedly have that proves everything you believe. So ask yourself, what are you trying to accomplish? And if the answer is just seeking the truth, okay, that's reasonable. We're all allowed to try to find the truth in the best way we can. We've been lied to throughout history so often that, of course, we're not going to believe the official narrative right off the bat, right? Perfect. I understand that completely. But you know what? Seeking the truth doesn't always necessarily equate to knowing things for a fact and then putting them out there in such a way that not only do people believe you because of how you present it, but you're also magically enriching yourself in the process. So really ask yourself the question, what are you trying to accomplish? And now if you're coming from the perspective of somebody who's just looking into this information and digesting this content with the intent of trying to find the truth as well, and you aren't necessarily in a position or a capacity to enrich yourself, you should still be asking yourself what you are personally trying to accomplish. And if this has turned into a form of sick entertainment, you should definitely consider that, because we're talking about the tragedy of a man losing his life before all this began. So keep that in mind. Now, another consideration to make. Why is some of this content getting so much attention? We all are aware of the fact that there is a large level of censorship that occurs on online platforms. We definitely know it targets one ideology much more than the other. And we also are aware of the fact that trying to get information out there that's of importance is very difficult at times. I've struggled with it personally. In fact, some of the things that I've talked about here in previous months before all this occurred that actually explain pretty much exactly what happened here. Can't get out. I can't seem to get that information shared to anyone. And that's just how this works. But when it comes to baseless conspiracy claims that don't actually have real evidence, which we'll talk about here in just a second, they're getting 500,000 views in 5 hours or 1 million views in a day, or who knows, especially on channels that it doesn't even make real sense to be posting that type of information. The relevancy isn't there, but hey, what do I know? I don't know if the algorithm's favoring it. I don't know if it's just because people are really looking for it right now and they'll take it from any source they can possibly find, regardless of relevancy, or if it's because there's a potential that there are such things as bots and other measures that exist that can artificially inflate certain viewpoints in order to possibly, I don't know, inflame additional chaos or create some sort of a fog in order to hide the actual truth. I don't know, but these things might actually exist. Just do some research. So that's another question you should be asking. Why is this being so pushed in the sense of gaining viewership to the point where it is not being suppressed at all? Anyway, if you're so certain of this evidence or these theories or your conclusions, and you're literally saying, I have definitive proof that this is what happened, the FBI's lying, I know who's behind it, I can tell you the exact trajectory, all the stuff related to it. Great. It's amazing you were able to find that information on your own, especially considering that most of the people making these claims have zero experience with any of what would be required to actually formulate a forensic investigation. But that being said, there's very smart people out there, and the average person who can educate themselves and be logical in their thought process does have the capacity to potentially solve a crime. So I'm not going to discount that. But what did you do with that evidence or proof before making it public? Did you contact anybody that might actually have some level of investigative power that could actually use that information to try to prosecute the people behind these crimes? Did you contact your local field office? Did you contact the FBI? Did you contact your local detective at your local police department, or anybody? Anybody with a law enforcement capacity that could actually enforce the law against the perpetrators of this crime. Did you submit that to anyone? Or was your first inclination to post it on YouTube? And if that's the case, now you have to start asking yourself whether or not you just didn't think before posting it, and asking yourself what your real priorities are here. Because if your real priorities were to solve the case in order to get somebody arrested and caught for the crime of murdering an American in broad daylight in front of a crowd of thousands of people, generally you would submit that evidence somewhere where it could actually be useful. Now the claim is going to be, well, the public deserves to know, right? Great. Now I'm going to assume you're just ignorantly unaware of the fact that the evidence that you have now given to the public is likely never going to be admissible in a court of law, thanks to the fact that it no longer has integrity, because of the fact that you put it out without a chain of custody involved. A chain of custody is something that evidence is required to follow in order for it to be admissible within a court, which is where all these things actually matter at the end of the day. As long as this system and this process is still what we're trying to rely on in order to maintain some sort of civility here in this country, then we have to follow those procedures, or else it's worthless, regardless of whether or not it's the truth, right? Listen, are the courts corrupt? Yeah. Is the FBI corrupt? Yeah. Is there a civil war likely happening in the FBI right now between different factions? I would assume so. Yeah, that's how these things work. Let's put on our adult pants and talk about things in a mature level. Everything is not working the way we wish it could, right? Obviously. So now, what's the other part of this situation? So you didn't contact anybody because you think there's corruption and everything else, and you're trying to put the information out there so that way you can prove that the FBI is lying and that they're corrupt, right? Do we need that? Do I need someone to prove to me that there's corruption within the government and that the FBI lies to us? No, I don't. I don't need. No, we know that. We all know that. So that's not the purpose of this, because if it was, it would be silly because it's something that doesn't need to be reiterated. Okay, and now listen, I am a skeptical person. I have been in the conspiracy circuit since I used to listen to AM radio. Like that's just how it is. But I also understand that there's a level of rationality we have to apply to these things in order to, I don't know, ensure we're doing the best we can regarding what we're speculating on and what we're willing to accept as proof, rather than just accepting anything that gets thrown our direction. Otherwise, I would think Bat Boy was still hanging out in the harbor waiting to steal fish, right? Like it's... grocery store tabloids were a thing, trust me. Now, that's the questions I'm asking you, whoever you might be. What's your purpose here? You really need to self-reflect on that. And as somebody who's consuming this information, you should self-reflect on that as well. Because if it is entertainment, that's, at least you can admit that. Is it problematic? Probably. I would think so, in the sense of morality. But if you can admit it, at least you're aware. And I think that's way more respectable than what some of these people are actually doing. Okay? Now, another thing that I think you should definitely be aware of is that mechanical experience doesn't equate to investigative experience. So, someone being shot doesn't make them a ballistics expert, right? Someone shooting their entire life doesn't mean that their personal experience is proof of anything. Variables exist. Should we take the advice and opinions of people with experience and apply it to the overall data set to get a good idea as to what may be occurring, or to have some concepts of what to consider? Sure. But there are a lot of people out there that'll have you believe that their word is the word of God, and there's no other way it could possibly be because they said so. And that's not how you're supposed to critically think about anything. There's a lot of people out there who've carried a gun for a living. That does not mean they're a ballistics expert. I can't even talk. I'm like losing my mind here. There's a lot of people who write articles. That doesn't make them a journalistic investigator. There is a level of standards that need to be applied to actual investigations in order for them to be legitimate. Theory and speculation is one thing, but don't confuse mechanical experience with actual investigative experience. They're not the same. And I'm not an investigator, and I can admit that, which is why I can't come out here and just tell you exactly what happened, because not only do we not have all the pieces of the puzzle yet, but I'm also just not qualified. And I think more people should be willing to admit that, okay? Now, another thing to consider is that opinion is not evidence, and what we're getting is opinion. Evidence has a legal definition that's required for it to be submissible in a court. So when people are providing you with evidence of what happened, and evidence that there's a cover-up, and evidence that there's tunnels and valves and everything else going on right now, that's not evidence, okay? Is it evidence by the definition of the word? Sure. But is it evidence that's actually useful in the prosecution of a crime? Currently, no. It's opinion as of right now. Evidence has to be submitted to a court and approved to be able to be used in the prosecution of a crime. These things are basic understandings of civics, right? But I'm just bringing them up and reiterating it because clearly there's a disparity between what people believe to be evidential and what people are actually saying in the sense of opinion. Now, another thing you should definitely keep in mind. Can you tell I'm upset? I'm upset. I'm getting really sick of it, to be honest with you. And I'm like the first guy to tell you that there are major conspiracies that we've lived through. But I'm also very aware of the fact that things have changed, right? People want to reference JFK, 1963, and everything else related to that. You think the same playbook's in play 62 years later? That's what we're going on? Okay, got it. So, what we're seeing as well is right now, especially those with definitive proof, and especially those who feel that there is no wiggle room based on the information they're presenting, is narrative crafting. They've created a narrative using the level of information they have access to, And by doing so, have created a believable narrative that has gotten a lot of people to agree with them because that was their goal in the first place. And it sounds a lot like what they're accusing the FBI of, doesn't it? Oh, yeah, they just want this narrative. Oh, they needed this left-wing narrative. They want everyone to just assume it was so easy for someone to turn themselves in. Oh, they just want everyone to assume that it was political violence and everything else, right? Oh, that's the narrative. Okay. The narrative that's being crafted by people spewing this nonsense is also a narrative. There's no difference. Limited amounts of information can be put together in the format of a story to get to an ending that's believable. And that's what you're seeing. That's just the reality of it. Okay. Now, another thing you have to ask yourself, okay? When we're having these speculative discussions, are they productive? Are we providing rational discussion? Or, this is something that's important that I think you really need to be keeping in mind. Or are we all just yelling, "Burn her"? What does that mean? Think of the Salem witch trials. If you get a mob together, you can get them to chant, and you can get them to agree to do a thing or to believe a thing with a terrible outcome as long as everybody is on the same page, right? So what is it you're actually participating in? Is it rational discussion or is it burn her? Okay? Now, there are some legitimacies that I think you should keep in mind as well regarding exposing yourself to this information for the purpose of dealing with the trauma of the event. There's a lot of people that felt this was very traumatic. There's a lot of people it affected personally, emotionally, mentally, and there's a lot of people out there that are just looking for answers because they're traumatized. And I think that's reasonable and natural. And so I can understand that. And those people are, unfortunately, right now, vulnerable. And that's why so much of this is occurring, even if they're not aware of it. Subconsciously, there's a level of trauma that was created by seeing that video and by understanding what happened and by sympathizing with the family and everything else. These people are traumatized. And people aren't meant to watch a video like that, especially more than once. So this is something that is happening on a psychological level. And so if you're watching this stuff over and over again and trying to seek information and seek answers, it could be, I'm not saying it is for sure, but for some people it is a trauma response and you're trying to figure out a way to heal. And that's understandable. And so I'm not mad at people for participating in this, but it is something that you should try to be aware of. And if that's what's causing this infatuation or obsession with rejecting anything other than the official narrative and or rejecting the official narrative and believing anything else, or either way, regardless, if that's what's happening, understand that that's what the memorial event was for. It's supposed to provide closure, and it's supposed to help people who are traumatized by the event heal. So maybe that's something you should watch if you haven't, if you are actually traumatized by this, or maybe that's something that you should watch again if you have already, as a way to cope with some of that trauma. That's just something I'm putting out there because I think that's a reasonable consideration when it comes to the way people are reacting to this particular event. Now, the other thing that you have to ask yourself when you're watching this information and you're participating in it and you're actively engaging in it is whether or not it's because you truly want to find out what's going on or because you're trying to reiterate your personal beliefs. If confirmation bias is what you're looking for right now, you will absolutely find it. And that only reinforces what people believe, even if it's not the truth. And that is dangerous, and it's something that's used against humanity on a regular basis. In fact, it's one of the driving factors of propaganda. So please keep that in mind as we go through all this information and as we ingest all of this conspiratorial nonsense, because a lot of it's crafted with that intent to confirm your bias, regardless of whether or not it's true. Okay. I'm upset. Questioning the official narrative makes sense and is reasonable. Going down these rabbit holes of certainty, placing blame and removing blame at the same time is detrimental. Right now, we've had an opportunity to move forward as a country, understanding a lot of our principled beliefs. We don't believe in political violence. We don't want things to get violent. We need to solve the problems in our country regarding foreign entities that are funding certain aspects of our population to become radicalized and then used as weapons against us. And we need to figure out how to root out that rot and get things back on track. And this is a historic opportunity to do so, because people are energized and people are looking for a way forward and looking for what they can do to help, because they understand just how high the stakes are at this point in time. And all these people are doing is filtering off that momentum and that energy and those people who have goodwill and good intentions from actually accomplishing any of those goals, and instead turning them just towards a rabbit hole that never ends. And in many ways, with maybe out any actual intent or realization, radicalizing them into alternative beliefs. Instead of reinforcing the fact that, yeah, there is a faction of this country that wants certain people dead. And there are foreign agitators that create an environment where people who actually feel that way and believe those things may actually take action thanks to being motivated by these dark entities. They're coerced into it. They're groomed for it. But instead of focusing on that, instead of understanding that we are actually in a spiritual battle, and instead of understanding that there's a lot of work to be done that needs to be done now while we have the opportunity, while Charlie Kirk gave his life for this opportunity, people are enriching themselves vastly, by the way, capitalizing off of the traumatic reaction of a large portion of the population, and then coming at everything as if they know better than anyone else. Somehow, these people know more than any actual professional investigator on the ground. Somehow they have more access to information than any of the agencies that are actually investigating this crime. Do you have to trust every agency? No. Do you understand that right now there is a rift in law enforcement, especially at the federal level, between leadership and field agents? 100% there is. But are there good people right now that are on our side that actually want to figure out what's going on here and try to stabilize and save lives in the process? Yeah, there really are, actually. I know you might not believe it, but that's because you don't talk to anybody or know anybody who does anything related to law enforcement. I mean, that's just the truth, right? So, listen, be careful with all of this and understand that the driving methodology here is personal gain at the most. And at the very least, it's ignorance, which is just as detrimental and just as damaging. And I'm pissed about it. I'm pissed off about it. Man, if you were the enemy that wanted bad things to happen to our country, wouldn't it be great if the people that you are generally concerned with, in regards to the ones who might actually stand up and try to protect the way things are here, wouldn't it be great if they all just looked at something else instead of what you did? Wouldn't it be great if everybody just didn't pay attention to what was actually happening? All these ballistic experts out here suddenly that aren't willing to admit that strange things occur, right? Because it just doesn't fit their narrative. So what questions should you ask? Why are you asking the wrong question? There's one right question to ask right now. The right question to ask right now is, what can you do? Not what happened. Does what happened even really matter? Right now, the question is, what can you do to improve things right now? How can you be a better American? How can you actually be productive when it comes to moving things forward from this tragedy, rather than just wallowing in it? How can you get involved? Have you even tried to get involved? Do you think spending all of your time on YouTube and X, just blanketing yourself in unverified conspiracies, is beneficial to anything? Do you need any more reinforcement that the system has a level of corruption to it? Is that what you really need? Or could you take this opportunity to usher in all the Americans right now who don't know where to turn and aren't really sure about what's happening and haven't been introduced to any of this information, but are willing to do something and willing to learn now? Do you think that you could help them understand where we're at, what we're trying to accomplish, where we're going, and what they need to start doing in the sense of preparation? Or is it better to just send them down the rabbit hole of, well, you know, there was tunnels there and also a CIA drone mothership was above, and now we know for a fact it was a lapel mic, right? Like this, how does that benefit anything at all? At all. Even if some of that's true. What does it do at this point? You know what matters? What matters is what happens throughout this investigation, to the point where there's actual prosecution at the end and justice is actually served to a degree. Will we have that? I can't guarantee that. I don't trust the system in that regard. But I'm also not going to just write it off because somehow I know better than everybody else who has access to the actual evidence and to the things that actually happened. Plus, there's a whole lot of you right now that are showing the fact that you've never interacted with weird fringe people on Discord servers once in your life. So we all need to stay in our lane, don't we? Now, if you're asking that question, how can I improve? What can I do? What can I get involved with? How can I make things better? How can I help Charlie Kirk's legacy rather than just wallowing in his murder? Here's some things you might want to consider. I don't know. Do you even know anybody from your local municipality? Have you met anyone? Have you met, the mayor, any city councilmen? Have you met anyone on the school board? Do you know any of your local police? Do you know any of your first responders? Do you know anybody? If the answer to that's no, well then that's probably a good place to start, right? And on a personal level, I'll just tell you guys a couple of things here. I've been trying to do more lately, not even just because of this event, prior to it. I've been working on a lot of different projects because I felt the need to do more and to provide more that I just felt like I wasn't capable of doing on my own any longer, just from posting videos on this channel. So there's a lot of steps I've been taking. One of those was making a product. I did that because I thought it would be useful and help people out and also stay here in the USA in the sense of the economy, right? That's something I worked on. That's something I felt like did help improve some things, even if it's at a small level. But we can only do what we're capable of, even if it's at a small level. If everybody in the country did something small, it would benefit everyone else. Another thing I'm doing is I got involved with a foundation called the Task Force 70 Foundation. It's a police training organization specifically for small town and rural police that literally trains cops who don't receive the training for free and teaches them constitutional principles in the process to ensure that we have the law enforcement we need in this country regarding respecting our God-given rights while also protecting our communities. Because in all honesty, we need law enforcement. As many as us, agree on the fact that there's big problems and that there's a lot of corruption and issues when it comes to law enforcement. Without it, we have anarchy and nothing works the way it's supposed to. Regardless of what your libertarian friends say, I guess they've probably never been held at gunpoint and had their ass kicked in their own front yard like I have, where I understand maybe it's nice to be able to call for help sometimes. So I'm involved with that because I actually believe in it and I think it will help the country, not just myself. And I also think that it's something worth considering supporting if it's something you're interested in and looking for something you can do to improve things. But regardless, these are things that I'm working on and these are things that I'm trying to do far and past just myself and what I can accomplish on a YouTube channel. But now I'm even more motivated and more driven to do that. Now I'm even more motivated and more driven to find out what else I can do, because it woke me up a little bit in the sense of how fragile things are. It woke me up in a little bit in the sense of how quickly things are escalating. And it also showed me that that we need to do more in order to get this thing back on track, or else it will fall apart, it will collapse, and then we will actually be using all the preparedness supplies we have stored away, and none of us want to actually live that life. So those are the considerations that you need to be making, and those are the questions you need to be asking. This is the time for that. This is where we can actually move things forward positively, while also not squandering an opportunity that a young man gave his life for, and not recklessly profiting off of that death, which is what it feels like to me at this point. I'm really pissed off about it. I'm really getting annoyed by it. I've never claimed to be an expert of any real degree. I've always told you guys exactly what I am. I'm a regular guy who has the ability to do some research. I've worked in hospitality for most of my career, and now I do this, and I try my best to share information to help people get better prepared, right? But I'm not, ex-military, I'm not law enforcement or anything like that. I don't have any of those backgrounds, and I've always been very transparent and upfront about that. So no, I'm not an investigative expert either. I'm not a ballistics expert. I'm not somebody who can solve this crime, because I'm not qualified. But I'm willing to admit that, and I can understand that, and I can willingly say that the only way crimes like this actually get solved is by professionals. And if they're corrupted or complicit in it, then we're screwed, right? But that's the reality of it. All this other stuff is just bullshit. It's just bullshit. And you really need to be careful about what you take as truth at this point, because you don't even have to create a conspiracy anymore. It's made up for you afterward. And just so you know, for those of you who are upset about certain foreign countries, right? They do this thing, and it's called maximizing a situation for personal gain and benefit. And so, yeah, do I have problems with a lot of these countries? I know a lot of people are thinking of Israel right now. Yeah, I think there's a lot of bullshit going on there, 100%. And do I think that it's disgusting to maximize personal benefit and gain when the tragedy happens in our country, which is what Bibi Netanyahu did? Yeah, I think that's effed up. But is that what a lot of these people are doing too? It certainly seems that way. So maybe consider who you're mad at. Okay, I think that covers it. Yeah. Okay. So, here's what I'm going to do. I am going to get back to preparedness content, get back to guns, the stuff that I like, trying to get people motivated to do a little more or think a little bit more, and I don't know, get some ideas about the way things are and what might be good for them in the sense of survival and preparedness. And start working on some of the other things that I've been trying my best to insert myself in order to be more of an asset to more than just myself. And so if you want to check out the project I'm working on, Task Force 70 Foundation, I'll link their YouTube channel down below as well as in the pinned comment, because I'm the one editing those videos and I'm the one producing it. So if you're wanting to support me and work with more of what I'm doing, I think that would be very awesome, and I would really appreciate that support. And then, of course, if you want to become a donor to that foundation, which is a nonprofit that doesn't take any NGO government money, which is the money that you should be concerned about when it comes to why these bad things are happening, then that would be greatly appreciated as well. You can do that from their website. But that's like my piece of the pie. That's what I'm trying to use as a way to benefit others, and using the skills and the talents that I have been given by God to try to provide where I can, provide some service. And so hopefully that service is well received, and hopefully it actually does help some people, because the last thing we need is a failure like what we've seen on so many other levels regarding protecting the most vulnerable parts of our communities. And that's the mission of this foundation. So listen, that's what I'm going to do to try to improve things. I'm going to get more involved with my own community as well. I'm already trying my best to be a good neighbor and help out there where I can. And I am also trying to keep doing what I can on this channel. And I'm busy. But you know what? It's a good thing, and I feel good about it. And if you guys aren't sure what to do, ask. Ask somebody, even me. I don't care. But I think that's the question you should be asking. What can I do?